No, I won't. No, I promise I won't. It's I'm well trained by my father on interviewing people, and I have to be like, okay, not every conversation you have to ask them every question in your head. I'll just be talking to random people in like the store, and suddenly I've got their life story by accident. So,
Right. That's a great talent to have. That's why you're man, yeah, why you do what you do. We're about to talk about all that. Laters. Bring the stuff back. Hey Logan. Sure. Hey, real quick. Come say hi to Remember Liberty? Liberty, Liberty. Liberty, Liberty.
hey girl, I'm gonna live with that forever.
Hang on there.
Digital 410 proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts Don Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Henry Sledge.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II-based podcast, and we are back every Monday, and each and every Monday. I want to thank each and everybody who logs in to the YouTube channel and participates in the conversation. And if you're hearing the audio of this and you've never thought about it, you too can join in on the conversation. Please join us live every Monday, 9:30 Eastern Time on YouTube. As we stream the show live, you can listen along, communicate, send out chats and questions, and we'll answer them in real time. And speaking of real time, joining us in real time, as always, straight from the, well, I don't know, you guys get any of the bands from the crazy hurricane that hit California, Jeff? Or are you guys still nice and dry out there?
We're crispy, dude.
Crispy?
It's crispy out here.
It's a dry heat, though, right?
Oh, yeah. Dry heat, no humidity. 106 today. I heard a story of a lady, I think, in Austin that baked a loaf of bread in her mailbox.
I've seen that video. Yeah, it's been in the, like, 96s, 97s down here in Florida with, like, bathroom 2.5 seconds after you get out of a hot shower type humidity. So we have both the heat and the god-awfulness that you just walk outside, and if you're a lady, your hair just goes, and you look like Sideshow Mel, late Simpsons, 1995. We're excited. Tonight's episode has been years in the making, and I'm going to let Jeff intro this guest because he has put in the work to get her on. She's been busy doing great things, and we're happy to have her on the show. So, Jeff, if you don't mind, take it away, sir.
Yeah, I mean, you called it. It really has been years, and that has been like no fault of mine. Let me just get that out there. I've been doing my end of the bargain.
It's all T-Mobile's fault.
But we've got Liberty Phillips tonight, and you know, I'm just so proud to know her, to call her a friend. I've known her for years, and for those listening, you're gonna have probably the same questions that I have because she's such an absolute enigma, and she does what so many of us want to do and wish we could do, but I'll be honest, I have no idea how to actually explain what it is she actually does. We just know it's amazing because, like I said, I've known her for years, and she has given me opportunities that I would never have again, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So without further ado, the lovely Liberty Phillips from Operation Meatball and Bridge to History.
Hello. Thank you. And I'm sorry I've been evading and elusive for so long. It is no fault of your own, I promise. I think last time, I think we actually had a date nailed down last May, and then I was in Vietnam and got stuck there, and I was like, I can't do the time change. So we're here. We're in Texas, enjoying 105-degree temperatures too.
If I only had $1 for every time a guest got stuck in Vietnam. That old chestnut.
You know, I've been bleeding that for all it's worth, actually.
I think it's like number 3 excuse on monster.com of like 2004 of why people miss work, but you know, we won't bring that up.
It is a legitimate excuse. I was with all these Vietnam rotor heads. We were just supposed to be there for 10 days. And at that time, you could only get back stateside if you had if you got a negative COVID test. Oh. And every single person on the trip, except for me and the tour leader, kept testing positive for like 2.5 weeks.
So you're guilty by association.
I was like, I can't abandon these people. I have to stay and help them. And then I just was like, so I was there for a couple weeks longer than planned while everybody was stuck. And I'm just like filtering them food and anything we think that could kill it. So if that's like lots of vodka, we tried it. But so it was a legitimate excuse. It was a real excuse.
When you have a situation like that, where you have, how many people were on that trip?
We had, I think 18 were locked up at one point. 18 out of 20. Yeah.
So you have 18 out of 20 and you guys are held over for 2 weeks. How does room and board work on that? I guess maybe the hotel probably just kept your room because it's not like the next people are coming in because they probably can't fly in, right?
The hotel was amazing, actually. Shout out to the Silk Path in Hanoi. The irony is that we were stuck in Hanoi, like a block from the Hanoi Hilton. And so, yeah, the hotel, every day they were sending people to give the COVID test, and they just held the rooms. And a blessing in disguise is Vietnam was requiring travel insurance at that time. Like, you couldn't enter the country unless if you had travel insurance. So thankfully, all of that was covered, which is really nice because it was a very nice hotel. But yeah, the hotel was awesome. They just kept shuttling food and saying, well, we hope you make it out tomorrow. And when we finally were all cleared, they literally had a party for us and celebrated. They were like, we love you, but we're very happy to see you go. Go home, Americans. You're the best, but go home.
I never really thought about it, but I'm surprised the Hilton's PR people really haven't put a little more effort in trying to get that whole that acronym changed for that particular situation. Just let it ride.
Right.
Well, there you go. So, stuck in Vietnam, and that's I think a perfect segue to, you were there for business and what you do. So if you could tell everybody a little bit about Operation Meatball, because I'm just as curious as everybody else listening here, how did you get started in being able to create a life for yourself and an organization that's just revolves around taking care of veterans and traveling with them? It's amazing.
Yeah. And so there's the long version and the extended version. I'll give you the concise one. I got introduced into the world of World War II and history when I was pretty young. My dad actually took my family to the 60th anniversary of WWII, which was held in Fredericksburg in 2005. So I was 8. I'm going to be 27 months. So yeah. So when I was 8, Dad took us around and introduced us to the vets. And he was like, these are really important people for you to meet. He explained the history. He's like, talk to them. And I didn't really know what was going on, but I had this enormous tape recorder, which I carried around and interviewed the vets. And I think I met Jack Lucas. And I have the cassette somewhere. I got to take it off cassette, and I need to put it on.
I can help you with that. I just so happen to know they do make tape cassette to USB around Amazon. It's just a tape cassette to USB, and you can just
simple
plug it in, hit record, hit play, and then walk away for 45 minutes, come back, flip the tape, walk away, and then edit it later.
That's amazing, because I've moved tons of times since then, and that's the one object I've never lost, which I don't know how. So that was when I was 8. That was my first introduction. I kind of met my first World War II vet when I was 6 in connection with that, because he was a P-51 pilot who lived in Fredericksburg. He'd been shot down by friendly fire in the Pacific, and my dad was going to make a documentary on his story. So, and we'd, on my way to music lessons in Fredericksburg every week, I'd stop by his house, pick up picture books, and then he was like a home library. So that got me into a little bit interested in World War II. I was very big into history. I was reading military history books when I was 8. But fast forward to when I was about 14, Dad was taking some World War II vets over to Normandy for the anniversary. So we put on a big event, and that's kind of when everything clicked for me, because I met a couple of British vets who, two of them actually, one was in the Army, one was in the Navy. They became like surrogate grandparents to me. My grandfather died when I was pretty young. He had Alzheimer's. And so these 2 British vets kind of stepped in, and one of them in particular, he wrote me letters. He wrote me hundreds and hundreds of pages of letters. talking about the war, writing stories, just making up children's stories, integrating his life, telling me all about these things. So that's when everything really clicked, was when I was about 14, and I realized there is a time constraint. I'm growing up on the tail end of when the vets are around, and pretty sure there's not going to be a lot left soon, and my kids are definitely not going to meet them. So my sisters and I, when we were all in high school, we started Operation Meatball, which it grew. We started it as something really small, and it just snowballed. Initially, it was just going to be, one sister, Faith, she was going to sing. We were going to have a correspondence with veterans, take down their stories, record them, and do a little bit as we could and meet as many vets as we were able to. And then it's like a little bit like a drug. The more you meet, the more you want to meet, and you learn more stories, and then they become your friends. And we'd said, all right, we're going to do this for 3 years while we're in high school, because we're going to be older. We're going to have college. We're going to have stuff to do.
Older.
So we started Operation older. Yeah, I know. When you're like 15, 3 years is huge.
Hold on. Since I derailed your train real quick, because I know our audience is going to be wondering, what did your father do? Did he have a direct association with military and veterans? Was it a hobby for him? Because you said, he introduced you to vets. He's working on a documentary. Now he's taking guys overseas. What was your father's association with World War II and the military?
So immediately, no military connection. He had a great uncle who was killed in a POW camp in the Pacific. But Dad and his dad my grandfather was a huge history buff. He worked up in DC and Capitol Hill. He was connected with a lot of military leaders in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And he was just loved history, and he understood the connection of, you understand where you came from, you know where you're going, you understand your history, so you don't repeat it consistently. So he raised his kids. He took my dad and my dad's 5 siblings to battlefields, and if they read a history book, that he'd take them to meet the author. So my dad was brought up in that world of just a lot of hands-on immersive experiencing of history. And so my dad then kind of picked that up. Ironically, my parents went and did Civil War battlefields for their honeymoon.
Nice.
So the nerd level was up there already. So Dad's done a lot of different stuff over time, but his passion has always been storytelling and documentary making. So he did, that's when he realized that was kind of his niche, when he started doing documentaries on Iwo Jima, that's kind of when he pulled us kids in, because it was always a family business. We always worked together. It's great because it's like, you get a lot of cheap labor, but it's also, it's a good thing to do together. So that was his connections. I know a military, my grandfather tried to enlist in Vietnam, but they wouldn't take him. And that wasn't the path for my dad, but telling the story and narrating, because, who writes the history books determines how you're going to look back on things.
Sure.
So that's how I got roped into it. It was just
perfect,
kind of bred into that world. Yeah.
That's very cool. I mean, if you're going to get forced into a family business, it's better something historical than like selling carpets.
I don't know. I mean, everybody's had different interests.
Oh, absolutely. I just went to carpets because I grew up with a guy whose dad had a carpet store. So, but,
I don't know. You see a lot of inside of people's homes in a carpet store, I bet, eventually. Yeah, thankfully carpet's going out.
So your 3 years just kept growing and growing.
So 3 years, yeah, we got to the end of the 3 years, and we'd been putting on, the girls had, Jubilee and Faith were my 2 sisters. They are. And we put on a couple of programs for veterans, both locally and with over in Virginia and DC, and with honor flights. We got really connected with honor flights. So we'd put on like USO style shows. There was an old car museum out in San Marcos, which I don't know, Jeff, if you ever been out to Dick's Classic Garage. It was, they closed a couple of years ago when Dick died, but he had the most incredible collection of classic cars. And I don't believe he was a veteran, but he'd been, I think his thing was he was a Boy Scout, but he loved the vets. And so he would let us host our events there, which was fantastic. And I think about it now, and it's hilarious that you've got like a 17 and 16 and 14-year-old hosting events for a lot of 90-year-olds. But we'd have like these terrific events in the middle of this old car museum, and it was just so much fun. So for 3 years we did that. we worked with Honor Flight. We did a lot of oral history collections. I had a veteran correspondence program where I just wrote hundreds of veterans. And then we get to the end of the 3 years and we go, oh, snap, we're friends with all these people now. And you can't just forget them and move on because my life has been changed. So we modified a little bit, because eventually one sister went to college and another sister, Faith, worked more pursuing her music, but we still worked together for a while. And it was like, okay, we're going to do probation for another year, and then another year. And then next year is going to be my 10th anniversary of Operation Meatball. So it went from 3 years to, no, we're going to do this because this is really important. And it's more even than just World War II veterans now, because I met a couple of Vietnam vets, which changed my perspective on the war and our Americans' understanding of Vietnam. And I realized, oh, there's just a lot more to unpack here. Yeah. And then you got the Korean War vets. So, and it's not, I think perhaps people could say, oh, you just glorifying war. And it's not, because I don't glorify war at all. War is horrible. That's why but that's why I do the work with the veterans to talk to them and get their stories. It's to hopefully translate it for people who didn't experience that, so we have a better grasp of it, and also so you remember and appreciate that.
Well, and you said it earlier, and that's a big thing, and we've said it so many times in this podcast. You do not hear the phrase if you don't learn your history, you're bound to repeat it. And no, and the only people who suggest you're glorifying war, people tend to be anti-war and don't know what they're talking about anyhow. So I don't think you have to worry about that so much. Real quick, you're saying you guys felt this kind of weird that you said a 14. What was your all's ages when you started the Meatball?
So when we officially, in the name Operation Meatball was just going to be there that was just a holding place. That was a joke, because it was going to be, Operation Overlord, Operation Mincemeat. So my dad was helping me set up the website at that time. I was like, Operation Meatball and Spaghetti Sauce, and it never changed. So I got stuck with that, but it worked because my old people remembered it. I'd have like a 99-year-old call me up and ask how the Meatball girls were doing. So when we started Operation Meatball, I was 17, Jubilee was 15 or 16, and Faith was 14.
Well, it works too, because meatball is kind of a term that was used during that time. But what I was thinking is, when you said the ages and how weird it was that you guys were kind of hosting 90-year-olds, if you think about it, though, there's no better generation, because when they were those ages, that was adulthood. We had a new friend of the show on from WLVM 1940s streaming radio, and he runs these real-time commercials.
I listened to that.
And one of them the other day was like, I don't know if it was a civilian corps but it was something war-related, and it said anyone over 14 and up. So that, like, during the war, that was their 14 and up, not 18 and up, but 14. And so it was quite common for that generation to look at 14, 15, 16-year-olds as adults and give them adult-oriented jobs. So to that generation, looking at you guys, sure, in their advanced ages, they might thinking you guys are young, but part of them probably thought back, yeah, well, when we were their ages, some of us were sneaking off to do more advanced things to help support the cause. And let's be honest, you guys are kind of born into this. Your names are Liberty, Jubilee, and Faith.
I know it's hilarious, and
that just goes to show
my dad was going
your parents.
Through law at that time, so.
Oh, I think they're great names. They're great original names. I mean,
it's great, and actually, the audio people won't be able to see this, but Fort Liberty. I'm against the name. I'm against the base name changing terribly, but they just renamed Fort Bragg Fort Liberty, and I hate it, but I think it is hilarious now that I'm named after a post.
Yeah, I think the first time I met Liberty, I was like, we were shaking hands like, that's your real name? Like, you're just Liberty?
Is that a stage name or nom de plume?
Actually, stage name, that's the main thing, is everybody thinks it's a stage name. I'm like, no, if I was picking a stage name, I would have picked something a little less obvious.
A little less on
It's
the
just
nose.
a little obvious, but it's worked out. It's worked out good. The vets, it's funny, different ages, people remember different things, but my nonagenarians usually remember me. So that's good.
So you guys started out with a predetermined idea of what Operation Meatball was going to be, but after you got out of high school, things started changing, and I'm assuming it's kind of gone in a direction that you never anticipated.
100%. Yeah. So when we recalibrated and said, okay, there's a little bit more here and it's going to take a little bit longer and you have all these relationships, there were definitely a lot of growing pains to figure out what to do, because the vets are dying and then I have all this resources of knowledge and stories from them, and it's still a growing process. But I worked with over the years, I worked with both my own organization, others doing battlefield return programs where we took the vets over. But it transitioned the last few years is when we said, all right, this is Operation Meatball's mission statement is honoring our veterans and connecting them with the youth of today. So as the veterans started to really get thin and the last few passed away, I've been to a lot of funerals. Then I said, all right, we need to start really getting heavy on connecting the kids with the veterans who are still alive, but connecting them with their stories too, because they are going to be the ones to carry that on. So that's why Operation Meatball started a sub program called Bridge to History, which is now taking preteens, so young kids, 9 to 12 years old, 8 to 12, to the battlefields of World War II, to D-Day, to visit to London, where you visit the epicenter of the war, Churchill, and giving them a hands-on experience so that they can, giving them the experience really that I had growing up, which is going to battlefields, feeling the dirt, picking up the rocks, running, charging, not making a mock or a joke of it, but like really seeing it with your hands and feeling it. So that's where I started Bridge to History. And I'm really happy with it, because we had our first program last year, and to see the kids connect, not just with the locations, but with the veterans there and the stories. And I know now, okay, I've spent my life with these veterans, and now I have someone who I can pass on what I've learned. I can pass it on to these young kids because they're really, really enthusiastic. I don't mean to sound like I'm an old person. No, I feel like I was entrusted with a big treasure with their legacy, and I need to find kids who are going to be able to take that on too. So that's kind of how OM morphed over the years.
And I think that's the perfect way to do it, because one of the other things we've talked about on here is kids nowadays, everything has to be interactive or tangible. To say, hey, we're going to sit down and watch a hour and 45-minute documentary on World War II or read this book, you're just going to get not interested. Where's my phone? But hey, It's hold this 3-pound helmet. Hey, we're going to get on a plane, go over there. You're going to see the battlefield. You're going to talk to the descendants or even some of the people who were children when this was going on in their backyards. And you don't get much more hands-on than that. And I think that's probably, with today's generation, that's probably going to be the best way to truly embed those seeds into them, and maybe some of those youth will get involved into World War II instead of waiting until they're 45 like most guys do.
Right. Well, and that's why I wanted to aim to a really young category of kids, and that's why I set it up to be a scholarship program, because a lot of people say, "Oh, well, I can't afford to do that. I can't afford to take the time off. I can't afford to do it." So I wanted to create something which says, okay, let me take that pressure off from you. Perfect. Where we give you the experience, but the kids, as a parent, you don't have to be worried about, okay, this is coming out of, this many paychecks. Now it's limiting in that regard, because I can only take so many kids per program, but I really want to reach out to kids so they don't have to wait till they're much older. And, I had a couple of people who wanted to sponsor kids for the last program who are on the north side of their age. They're past retirement, and they're saying, I'm doing this because I have wanted to go to Normandy my whole life and I haven't. Yeah. And so I want to give the kids the opportunity now. So
do you have
it's fun, and the age group is so fun. Sorry.
How do kids qualify? Is there a prerequisite? I mean, part of you say, well, we want kids who are interested in the subject, but we also want kids who aren't, so we can get them interested. How do you juggle that? How do you qualify the kids for the limited amount of slots per year?
So emphasis definitely goes on the kids who are interested, because I'm going to rely on them to get other kids interested. So to get on a program, they have to do a little bit of work. It's not just a free trip. They got to fill out, they've got an application form. Then they have an essay they have to write saying, why is it so important that I choose you?
Sure.
And then they have to do a video. Because I want to know, if I call them my Bridge to History ambassadors, because they're going to be representing their generation. And, kids have all different strengths. Some of the kids you bring are really shy. Some of them are very outgoing, but I want them to do a video because it starts the process of them getting out of their skin, talking and verbalizing the things that they're really passionate about.
Yeah.
And then they have to, and all that composition all together, then I know, okay, who are the ones who really want to go? Because I don't want to bring kids who their parents say, come on, you have to do this. I want kids who really want to go. So the kids who I bring I'm talking to them on the phone and I'm saying, all right, you're coming. And they go, I'm so excited. I've been waiting my entire life for this. I'm like, you're 9 years old. But I understand you've been waiting your whole life for this. Or one of the kids last year said, I've been waiting 4 years to go see D-Day. And I was like, since you were 5 years old? And he was like, yes, you don't understand. I've been reading and watching movies about this for 4 years. This is all I've ever wanted. So the kids are very, very passionate. And when they come home, it's more than just the trip. When they come home, they got to talk to their schools. They got to talk to the civics groups. They got to talk to all these groups. And that's where the mentorship program continues, because you can't just dump a lot of information on a young kid and then expect them to remember it. It's to kind of help them get their feet wet and to know, all right, these are the type of people I'm going to connect them with, groups, with veterans. And then they talk to their schoolmates and get their schoolmates excited. And that's where kids who aren't necessarily going to be interested in history at first they're going to be like, oh wait, Normandy, history, World War II. Okay, that might be a little more interesting than I thought. So it's a process, but we take the ones who are really gung-ho about it for starters.
What's the age group?
There's a lot of them.
Those
they all
kids?
Want to come.
What's the age range of qualified kids?
8 to 12. 8 to 12, though, I tell people, if you have a kid who's a little bit older or a kid who's a little bit younger, send in an application, because if someone drops out or if we make, if we change the age a little bit, I'd rather have them send in an application and show their interest than just say, oh, well, I can't because my grandchild or my son is 13. I mean, I'll take a 13-year-old. I just like 9 to 12 because they aren't bothered by technology or boyfriends and girlfriends or trouble or phones or any of that stuff. They're so passionate. And it's a cusp age where if a kid's really nerdy, and I use the term nerd lightly because there's everyone in the World War II and everyone who loves history has like a bit of nerd about them.
Yeah, but nerd's a popular thing now. It's not like it was in the 80s when we had Revenge
I guess
of the
now
Nerds.
it is.
Ever since Big Bang Theory came out, it's nerds. Otherwise,
True.
Why are there so many comic book movies? Because of a generation of kids raised up on Big Bang Theory. So it's cool to be a quote-unquote nerd now.
Yeah. Then yay for Big Bang Theory. But this age, talking
dorks,
to
on
the
the other
parents of
hand,
some of the kids, I was homeschooled, so my experience with like kids bullying and everything is very different, because even though I was around a lot of people all the time, I joke that I was over socialized as a child. I didn't have like that school experience where people like, oh, you like this, you're stupid. But I know for a lot of kids this age, if they're really passionate about history, if they're encouraged, they will blossom,
Mm-hmm.
they will pursue it, they will become historians and teachers. But if they have a bad history teacher, or if someone says, that's stupid, why are you studying about people who died?
Yeah.
Then they're going to say, oh, well, maybe it's not worth it. And then they just kind of shrink up. And I've seen that play out down the way, because I always think that I kind of have been able to read the last chapter in life, because I've known so many people at the beginning and the very end of life. And so one of my vets years ago was one of these people who he was really passionate about a subject. His subject he was passionate about was actually architecture. But he had a hard life growing up. He was kind of pushed around a lot, and he was told, don't pursue that. So he didn't. And the rest of his life, he wished he'd pursued this passion. He was brilliant, but he never did. And when he's 96, living by himself in a rough care home, He was like, I really wish that I had a push in that direction and been able to do this thing that I love so much, which is architecture and building and design. So with these kids, I wanna say, all right, if history's your thing, let's try it out. Let's see if it's something you can really take and run with it. Because then you can be teachers and historians and help other people. So
it didn't occur to me until you were talking about people saying that's dumb and squashing it down. This is also the age group where they're in those schools that it's very delicate, the topic of firearms in general. You can't bring it up. So how do you express your interest in a topic that revolves around firearms? I mean, in modern day school.
Right.
So it's almost like they got to kind of learn how to walk a verbal tightrope when out of school, when they want to talk about this interest, but not do it in a way that's going to get them, it's one thing in high school, but that age group, I mean, there's probably a lot of oversensitive not in a bad way, but oversensitive misunderstanding on that particular topic that a lot of these kids probably have to try to skirt around when it comes to certain teachers. So
right. Well, and that's where it's also more than just warfare that we're talking to the kids about, because I'm not here to teach the kids all about war. It's more than the history of the world and the history of World War II isn't just about the battles and the statistics. It's understanding leadership. If you look at the leaders, like if you look at the leaders and how they led, you can apply it to all areas of life. Like I know, I think it was Rudder's Rangers. He did football, and so there's these connections to how you lead on the football field with how he trained his men. And I mean, the overlap is tremendous. So these kids, I'm not just saying, all right, this is how many men were killed, this is what happened. It's okay. Look at the men who came ashore on D-Day and the ones who made it out, and why a leader is at the front. And so not to digress, but one of the first veterans I met, he was an Iwo Jima vet, he was a colonel, Colonel Henderson. And I remember when I was 8 hearing him say, a leader leads from the front. He had this really raspy voice. He said, a leader leads from the front. You don't say, boys, go take Hill 51. You say, come on, boys, I'm taking Hill 51. Sure. Come on with me. So that's an example of how it is to be a man, and showing that people can respect you and can count on you and follow you. And so that's, you want to teach those kids that. And then what is resilience? We go through London and we learn what is resilience. The English people during the Blitz. My English Gramps he joined the Navy when he was pretty young, but he was like a 14-year-old boy during the Blitz. And he has told me so many stories about how he worked at this theater, and he would take his water bucket and go on top of the roof and watch the bombs dropping. And he was there to douse any fires that happened. But his stories of just this subtle courage and resilience that the English had. I mean, that's something, the word resilient is one that we don't use a lot, but I think we could all afford to have a bit of that in ourselves. So I want to teach the kids all these different lessons of life. What is the price of war? We take them to the cemeteries. The cost of war is that there's, almost 10,000 Americans buried in Omaha Cemetery. You take them and you see the German cemetery, and you say, what does it look like when you lose? You are buried in a foreign land, and you're so far away from home, and people care, but it's different. Yeah. You're the losers in the war. And then meeting the people in France, in town, I introduced the kids to, we call them the Judel children, because there is a small town in Normandy that during the invasion, one of the paratroopers had landed in, and the town had taken care of him. And his mother, who was a wealthy Jewish woman, she was an expat who'd lived in Paris and then went home to America. She ended up supporting that town for 20 years after the war because she was so grateful to them. So all of these, now they're in their 70s and 80s. These French children, they got their education, their clothes, and their experiences, and she'd take them on trips to Paris so they could see the outside world. They had that experience because of Madame Judel. So I took my kids to meet them because they are the children of war. They're the children who were born during war and in the rebuilding afterwards. And telling my children, this is what it is like. This is why we have our friendship with the Americans, and this is what it is like to have gratitude. It's just, there's so many levels. The French are really beautiful people. The Normandy French are really wonderful. So there's so many lessons to teach children about World War II. It's not just about blood and guts and General Patton, who is a very magnificent human, but there's a lot of lessons. It's kind of like a fire hydrant.
Oh, absolutely. No, I was saying that in the terms of the uninformed teacher who may hear the child talk about World War II all the time. They're not thinking about all the stuff that we all were into this for, and so that's kind of the aspect I was talking about. Mm-hmm. Jeff, you got any questions?
So hopefully the kids will then go and talk to their teachers and be like, let me tell you what I learned about war. And the teacher's like, no guns. And you're like, it's more than guns.
Yep.
It's tanks and guns.
And really snazzy clothes.
Well, yeah, and I can say this because, this is my first year actually teaching history. I'm covering the kind of the first half of U.S. history, colonization to Civil War. And it's under a House Bill program. It's basically I'm teaching a bunch of freshmen who didn't exactly pass or get the scores that they needed in 8th grade. So they're offered like this extra time. Basically, I'm teaching during advisory. And, when you talk about like Liberty, when you were talking about resilience, right? Like there's some big concepts that come out of the Second World War that are so foreign to us because we haven't needed it. I don't even think, and it's crazy to say this, but I don't even think kids understand a winner and a loser in a war so much anymore, because when is the last time we had a clear-cut winner when we went to war?
Right.
It was the greatest generation. So war is fought so differently now. Kids are growing up. War is just, oh yeah, my brother deployed. He went over there like 6 times, whatever, and he came back, and we just sent him Maxim magazines, and he would play in video games, and we would FaceTime, and I, Facebook Live, and then he came home. Like that's war for a lot of the kids that I'm teaching, and there's such a disconnect. I was telling a story about when I got to meet President Bush, and kids asked me if I was in Vietnam. Like, you don't even look that old. Were you in Vietnam? Which Bush?
Like something like that. Something like that.
I'm like, so I guess that's one of the reasons that I heard the calling towards education, because it's so easy. I heard Don say it earlier. It's so easy to say, kids these days, they don't get it. Kids these days, they just want to play with their phone. Kids these days, well, I mean, that's no different than, when Don was growing up. Kids these days watching Saturday morning cartoons, it's melting their brain. Kids these days watching The Simpsons. Kids these days, whatever. So they're just a product of their environment. So that's kind of what was always my motivation, is when you say history to a middle schooler, especially, or a young high schooler, it's memorization. It's people, places, dates. And what Liberty does, and people, a lot like you, we try to take history. It's not memorization of names and places and dates. It's everything that happened before now and where we're at today, and making that connection. We're trying to connect those dominoes, because it's so hard to. The further we get away from these concepts, it's like, it's so foreign now, which to me, I think is a good thing. I know it's a good thing, because I saw teenage boys and girls in another country not even stop what they were doing when I watched 4 mortars come in within a couple hundred yards of them, and they didn't even turn around and look. When you have our country is, it happened in Central Park. If we had, just imagine, it's 4 mortars just land in Central Park, New York. Chaos, headline on the news for months. But when you grow up in a different environment, that's just part of your life, and no kid should be that calloused. No kid should grow up like that. So the fact that our kids these days here in America don't understand this, I think it's because of these 90-plus-year-old men that had, what it took. They had the guts, they had the drive, and they did it for the right reason. Because I know several, Medal of Honor recipients from my generation that they're not going to come to an event. unless you give them $10,000. They're not going to come talk. They're too busy for that. And then we have second generation that, you know, they'll take that medal and lay it on the headstone of their buddy, you know, or give it to the family of you know, the mom of somebody that was lost. It's totally different. So what you're doing, Liberty, is it's inspiring. It's fascinating. Like I said, I'm just so proud to say that I know you and that we get to see each other, you know, once a year or so, because you do what I wanted to do since I was 4 years old, and I just didn't know how to do it. I had to go the more conventional route. But to say that you've created this is just unbelievable. It's awesome. Like, I don't even know what to say. I know there's listeners going like, yes, can I have Liberty's job? Like, can I go to the high school council? Like, when you grow up, can I be Liberty Phillips? Like
I want my real job.
It's amazing. It's awesome. And I just think about all the World War II vets that I talked to that I never had the foresight to, well, let me write this down or let me record this. I mean, they're World War II vets. These guys, they're going to be here forever. Like, I don't know a world without them, you know? So, I mean, but yeah, the opportunities you're giving these kids is incredible. I laughed when you said this kid, I waited 4 years. Bro, I waited 40 years to go to Normandy, and I still haven't gotten there. One day, I hope.
Gonna get there, by the way.
Yeah, but you got to
we'll
remember.
Get there. It will happen.
Remember when we were their age, the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas seemed like 4 years.
Oh, forever.
Christmas is so far away now. It's like, oh crap, Christmas is around the corner.
When I was 6, yeah, my mom forgot my birthday. I told her this actually the first time the other day, and she was horrified. She forgot what day my birthday was when I was 6. And so I was convinced 5 years had elapsed, and she just didn't know. And I was actually much older. And then she went and remembered, and she's like, no, it's just still a couple months away. And I was like, how? This has been the longest year of my life. So yeah, kids' concepts. but everything, no, I resonate with I feel very blessed because I do recognize that the gift I've had of knowing so many vets, like having so many World War II guys basically on speed dial, and the amount of voicemails I have, just there is a reason my phone is constantly full. I mean, one of my guys used to call me up and just leave voicemails playing the harmonica. So I recognize I've just been tremendously blessed by that. That's why I really want to do something with all of this. And you're talking about the kids not being interested, and I really my hot take, which I don't even really know what hot takes are. I'm very old. I'm a very old person, but my hot take is that I actually think kids really would love history and get really excited about that if they were given the opportunity. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of adults write them off. They're like, "You're young. You're stupid. If you're shy, it means you don't care." And I mean, I used to be painfully shy. You see how that turned out. But I think a lot of that is adults just assuming they won't care, and so not putting any effort in. But you have to. It's like exercise. You got to exercise a muscle, and it takes time. You don't see results immediately. So if there's a child who is slower reading or just not as gung-ho about something, you just kind of have to nurse it a little bit and show them and make it exciting and find ways outside of the box, because statistics and numbers and names will always, they'll turn everyone off except for like data analysts and engineers. No, all respect to data analysts and engineers. One of my vets, one of my UO vets wrote 92 textbooks. That was his passion, and he won a lot of Texty awards. And I was so impressed with him for that. Not my calling in life, but I think you just have to. I tell parents a lot, not that they have to listen to, but I say don't write off the kids just because they seem checked out. Give them an opportunity. And that's why what you have done, Jeff, for years with your different organizations has been amazing. Like the hands-on living history is the best way. That's what several of the kids who are coming with me this year had never opened a book on World War II, and they happened to go to a militaria show, and there was someone doing a demonstration in a uniform, and they were like, whatever he's doing, I want to know about it because that looks cool. And then cool becomes, oh wow, this is important. And then important becomes, hey, I got to do something with my life. Mm-hmm. I need to represent these people. So you got to give them the opportunity. And I have to shout out to Jeff and your whole family, because I will personally forever be grateful for when y'all came down. Dawn, it was not this January, the January before. So January 2022, a Nemo vet who we were both very close with was in the hospital for a number of weeks, and he was dying. And the Copsetta family came down. Y'all drove hours round trip for that in full uniform and everything. And that was, I will forever be grateful to y'all for doing that for Fred, because that was, he was a spectacular individual. And that was the last cognizant day he was around. And that was a gift to him. It was a gift to me. It was really, really special. I'm digressing now, but that's something I hold on to. Is like, these are memories which we will each have now and treasure, and are very special and unique. And they're going, like you said, you assume they're always going to be around. I've known for years they weren't always going to be around, but now, like, they're my World War II breakfast. So only one or two guys at a breakfast, as opposed to like a couple of years ago when there were 15 World War II vets throwing food at me, saying, eat, sing, talk, all this stuff. So, yes.
Your necklace, is that a paratrooper? Are those paratrooper jump wings on your necklace?
Yes, they're jump wings.
It's kind of hard to tell because of how small the screen is. But I'm like, those look like were those given to you by a vet?
No. So I've been around too many paratrooper veterans, and so I went through a jump training program and got my jump wings. Very I was cool. Just going to get my jump wings, do 5 jumps. That's all. And then I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. So I'm on a couple of demo teams, and I'm trying to get Tammy to come jump with me. I think she would be incredible. She is material. She is static line jumper material.
How is it? Because I've thought about it. I really have, because there's another group that trains out of here in Florida, not too far from me, and I've considered it. Round canopy jump team.
I did Normandy with them this year. I will send you information afterwards, because you need to come do this. It's
I had one of their reps on my show about 2 years ago, but yeah. Because they came to one of our living history events, trying to recruit, and I've put some real thought into it. I still am, but I haven't got over that threshold yet.
Don, I mean, it would just be too easy. You're so tall, you just step out of the air.
38 seconds, and I'm on the ground.
Actually, yeah, you tall guys got to be careful. They hit their head on the top.
It's a short man's
comfortable.
world.
I feel like I'm like compact size. It is phenomenal. Well, I wanted to do it because I met a bunch of paratrooper vets who told me about Normandy and Holland, and it's very different. I don't jump in combat gear. I don't pretend to be like military or anything like that. I am on a demo team, so we will wear the uniform to show air shows to demonstrate to people this is how it's done. But it is an incredible experience. There's nothing like it in the world. You know, you're flying, you're landing, you're jumping.
You are truly living another saying that doesn't get said anymore. And that is, to truly understand a person, you have to walk a mile in their shoes. And you are clearly doing that with the jumping, going to all the different battlefields, all the museums, all the luncheons you've participated in. You are truly walking a mile in this generation, that particular generation's shoes, boots, what have you. I mean, you're really doing it. Just to get back to Operation Meatball, what was one of the first larger scale endeavors you guys took on? You know, you had a smaller kind of mission as you were going through high school, and then this thing started picking up, and at some point you started doing return to battlefields. When was the first real big one you did, and how does a up and coming group such as yours get all of the connections in place to do one of these for the first time?
So technically my answer is backwards, because the first big event was with the veterans going back was when I was 14, and I worked with my dad organizing that and put on an event. But I'd say we had like 30 British D-Day vets out for that, which is mind blowing to think about now. The first big one, so the girls and I, we did the 70th of Normandy because I see my gramps there, that there was a lot of things over there that we were doing at the time. And when we came back is when we were like, we got to do something. So I'd say December of that year is when we put on our first big event. And that was hard because the question was, how do we get connected with the vets? At that time, I wasn't connected with Honor Flight or any of the organizations. We literally knew no one. So we hoofed it a lot. I went to every single retirement home in San Antonio, Bernie, New Braunfels, and Fredericksburg. And, I did a lot of cold calls, and that was really hard because I was very young and that was hard, but it paid off because we ended up having 30 World War II veterans.
Wow.
Was it 30? It was like 20, I think. We had 20, I think it was about 20 World War II vets out to this program, which we hosted at the Car Museum. So that was the first big one where we went, okay, this is something we can do. And then after that, in this world, everything snowballs. So I started getting connected with Honor Flight. I had a friend who said, oh, you're interested in meeting World War II veterans? Here's a vet. Well, the vet said, hey, come to my breakfast group. That's a whole story in of itself because those breakfast groups are amazing, and it took a vetting process. But after that, I'd say I had a lot of opportunities kind of dropped in my lap because people would hear, all right, this is interesting. You're really young, but you girls seem really engaged. So here you can come to this event. And because my sister sang World War II music beautifully, a lot of people wanted her to come out and sing. So Honor Flight was one of the biggest breaks for us ever, though. I've got a lot of adopted family members around the country, but I have a friend up in DC who was a park ranger at the time. And he said, come up for Honor Flight. We greet them on this side, on the DC side, and you can meet a lot of World War II vets. Come up for a Super Saturday. So we went up for a Super Saturday, and that's when you have like a dozen Honor Flights coming in. And that would have been 2014. So that was the same year we started OM. And one day, 1,000 World War II vets came through the World War II Memorial. 1,000. I can't even comprehend that now. And so from there, I mean, at that time, we talked to the vets, and I'd say, hey, I've got a picture. Can I send you this picture? And so we got a lot of addresses and just started talking to them. And so then I started working with Honor Flights, and then different organizations would say, hey, come collaborate with us and work because we like what y'all are doing, that y'all are encouraging the vets, that it's life enriching, that you're collecting their stories and you're bringing music to them. Music is a huge part of the brain. Mm-hmm. It opens different avenues. So it was just kind of snowball effect after that. And that's a terrible answer, really, because I get asked a lot of time, people say, how do I get connected with vets? And the best answer is it's a lot of legwork. It's Honor Flight, and then a lot of hoofing. If there are air shows or events or military expos, you just go to them and talk to people and show that you're really sincere, because some people are just trying to rack up signatures. But if it's really passionate about it, then you gotta work hard.
How was the reboot process been after the COVID years? And what I mean by that is down here in Florida, prior to then, all the way up to 2018, beginning of 2019, we had a good set of reoccurring events down here. But after, the country pretty much closed down for a year and a half, 2 years, depending on 3 years, depending on what state you're in, some of our keystone events have come back, but some of them didn't. And, my living history schedule down here has dropped. In the wintertime, I would probably do 5 to 6 a year. Now it's like I'm lucky to get 3 to 4 in, and one of those is out of state. And so how is it in Texas in that side of the country as far as the rebooting of these public events, air shows, living history events, things like that? How has that been for you all out there?
Jeff, honestly, you could probably answer that better. It was obviously, we all know COVID was just terrible for the senior world, because a lot of my vets died over that time period, because not from sickness but from isolation.
Yep.
and I've worked in a non-medical capacity doing caregiving over the years. And I really love it, but it's really hard to see the cost of loneliness and isolation on elderly people. So as far as rebooting all these things, I don't know. I think Texas was really blessed to not have the massive um, issues that a lot of the other states did.
Yeah.
I think it bounced back pretty fast. Like my breakfast groups, we took a brief cessation. We paused briefly, and then we were back at it. And everyone was so happy to be meeting together. So I think it bounced back pretty well. But because so many of the veterans had passed away because they were really lonely,
Yeah.
they came back, but with less of a show in that area.
Jeff, you got any follow-ups?
But there's still a lot of programs all around. Sorry.
That's fine. There's always a delay.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Liberty said. Here, it really, I can't think of like an air show that didn't happen. I don't know if Wings Over Dallas ever had didn't have an air show because of COVID or something like that. I mean, I know, really for me, it really killed a lot of the energy for Walking Point for the film.
Yeah.
That was just really bad timing. I had some big hopes for what that was going to be able to do to help connect veterans and dogs and service dogs. So that was just like really bad timing there. But other than that, from a living history perspective, there were museums, of course. I mean, there was museums that shut down because, the perfect example, the town I live in is built around a frontier fort. There was nothing here. So Fort Croghan was built, and the Fort Croghan Museum was, run by borderline elderly women for the most part, volunteering to keep this museum open. And that fort, certainly, that museum suffered. Other museums, when I took over this one here at, the Highland Lakes Air Museum, we shut down for a couple months, but we didn't stop operations. So what I mean by that is there's a train that comes up to Burnett every Saturday from Austin, or Cedar Park area, outskirts of Austin. And it's about a 3-hour train ride. That never stopped. Everybody had to wear a mask, but other than that, the train still came into Burnett for a few hours. They got to walk around the historic square and go shopping. And my dad does an Old West gunfight, still. He's 73 and he's still doing it.
So great.
Just regular John Wayne. So what I would do is I'd bring, my old car out right next to the depot and be in uniform, have a table with some museum artifacts and some trifolds. And just as people got off the train, they want to take a picture with you and they want to know more, like, oh yeah, we'll definitely be back. We'll spend more time with them. So the museum was still reaching people, but legwork, Liberty was, a lot of legwork, a lot of volunteer hours to keep stuff going. But Texas was very fortunate, to not suffer as much as I think other places. And to go back to what Liberty said too, talking about Fred, our beloved Fred Harvey, that's definitely something that I owe you so much, because I was not aware of this situation. I only heard bits and pieces of, where he was at or whatever. And to get that call from you, really, it meant so much to me, because not even for me to go see him again and to kind of have him reminisce and to give him another World War II victory medal, because we haven't made a victory medal since World War II. So I thought that's, when it comes to like ribbons and medals and what people care about, that don't wear them, to me, that was the most important thing that came out of anything on the fruit salad from World War II, a victory medal. It doesn't get better than that, but not just for that, but for Logan at the time. He was, my oldest son, he was about 15, and then Alyssa was about 10. Madeline, too young to really know. She was only about 2.5, and Lucius was 6 months. But we've got pictures, and we can show them later in life that they did meet this guy, and and he knew of them. And I think that's important because I'm seeing it certainly with Logan and certainly with Alyssa. They are huge World War II fans. Even my 12-year-old girl, she's infatuated with it. It's so cool to see from that perspective, from a 12-year-old girl in 2023. She knows World War II. She loves World War II. She reads about it from time to time and loves to dress up. She loves the era. So it's just neat to see. And so that's just something I will always cherish. That New Year's Day, I will never forget. And again, because of Liberty. So I thank you so much for giving my family that opportunity, because Fred was very dear to me. He really was. And I know my wife meant a lot to him. Every time I'd come up, hey, Fred, how's it going? Did you bring that beautiful wife of yours with you? Hey, Fred, no, she's with me.
I know. Every time I went to Fred's house, and Fred moved. He was a nomad. He moved like every 6 months. God bless him. But every house he lived in, he always had, I think it was like a Christmas ornament Tammy had made, or something like that. Or maybe it was a picture. He always put it above the kitchen sink. And whenever I'd come in, he'd be like, I want you to see my girlfriend. Her husband doesn't know, but it's okay. Every time.
That's awesome.
I mean, that's
so great.
You can trust them with your life, but not your wallet or your wife.
So what's coming down the pike for Operation Meatball?
So we have our next kids program, next Bridge to History, is coming up very soon, October. In the middle of October, we've got 8 kids, and that is kind of the focus of attentions at the moment. We're still continuing all the usual. I just had a couple of events on the East Coast, the 82nd Airborne Convention, which I've been working with for a number of years. And then I was in Toccoa, Georgia, which is home of the paratroopers. It's where, the 101st trained. It's very famous because of Band of Brothers, but it's an incredible history. So the kids program is next on the docket, but we're still working locally with a lot of the World War II vets, just getting them out, getting them together, trying to give them like inspiration to keep on living a little bit. And some of them I've seen them, like, their energy rebirthed. They got old when they were in their 80s, but they got young when they were in their 90s because they found a new life. So balancing that out. I think Wednesday I'm going to go have breakfast with a young whippersnapper who just turned 103.
Nice.
So he only just started using a cane a couple of months ago. So it makes us all mad. We're like, why do you have to have such good hair, such good posture and everything? And here we are struggling along with life.
K rations.
I think that's what it is.
Ironically,
but
in the back of Sid Phillips' book, he said, because obviously when Sid Phillips got older, he became a doctor, and he said he oftentimes gives credit to C rations and K rations for his generation's post-war livelihood.
Those preservatives.
If a parent's listening, and they think their child may be interested in your Bridge to History, where they get associated with and communication with one of your vets or elders, how can one of those parents reach out to you and see about getting their child in that program?
Yes, please. Anyone, if you have, honestly, if your kids are older, if they're teenagers, still get me in touch with them, because I would love to work with that. bridgetohistory.com, which is bridge and then the number 2 history.com, or you can email me at liberty@bridgetohistory.com. But on our website, we have all the information, an application form and contact info if you want to just reach out and see. If you don't even have to put the application form in, just reach out and say, hey, we're interested. Can you talk me through how the program works? Because it's more than just European. We have a lot of stateside programs too, which we work with the kids. And because sometimes they can't get overseas. So we'll have events locally too. So yes, bridgetohistory.com, because we would love to connect with as many kids as possible.
And as always, as we always do, if you head over to WTSPWorldWar2.com, that's WWII.com, There will be a page dedicated to this episode where you can find links, photos, email addresses, and all the pertinent information to help you connect your child to Liberty and her two particular organizations. Jeff, you got anything before we wrap up the show?
No, except maybe just throw this out there to Liberty. If there's San Antonio is not very far from me, so if there's anything that you think I could do in any way to help you out, I'm right here. I'm trying to trim the fat a little bit with some of the programming that I've been doing and working with museums. I'm kind of phasing that out and doing more just for what's the Scuttlebutt and acting and things like that. But I am going to be in San Antonio the end of September for, you may know the organization, Walk Among Heroes or Walk for Our Heroes, I want to say.
Yes, Jeff Wells.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Heroes. I was about to say, you got to connect with them because they're the best. That's fantastic.
I have, I'm going to be down there for that banquet. Scott Gibson is going to be coming down. He, kind of travels with them and all that stuff. And talked to him, I guess, a week or so ago. And he kept asking me, he's like, "Are you coming? Are you coming?" Like, yes, I'm going to be there. Tell me what I need to do. He goes, "Oh, you didn't get tickets yet?" I'm like, "Scott, dude, I didn't know. For months now, I didn't know I needed to get tickets." And then it was amazing. Like later that night, super late at night, he texted me. He goes, "Dude, I got you on the guest list. You and Tammy, no problem." I'm like, "Oh, thank you." So
fantastic.
I can't wait. I can't wait to meet Scott in person and meet all these people down there, and just for Tammy and I just to spend some time in San Antonio. We love San Antonio. Love it. And
it is the best place. I do love
it.
I know where you live is wonderful, but yeah. I'm really glad to hear. Actually, one of my friends who I will introduce to you there, Maurice, his dad was the wartime mayor of St. Mary Glees.
Wow.
So he's going to be there. And
wow.
I've known Maurice forever. He actually, I met him 10 years ago. He came in, he spoke at my first event. Thank goodness we don't know what we're doing when we're a little bit dumb. But I wrote him and I was like, "Hey, I know I just met you in Normandy. Will you come talk at my event? I know you're going to be in Texas sometime." Literally no idea. And he's like, "Sure, I will." So, this legend of Normandy comes to my events. I'm like, anyways, Maurice is going to be there. So I will connect you because he's a terrific human being and just fascinating person. So I'm so glad you're connected with that and you'll be in San Antonio.
Yeah. Looking forward to that for sure. Yeah.
Jeff, you have anything else coming down the pike that you need to plug? You got any appearances coming down on anybody's shows or any events going on?
If you're familiar with Snafu Pod, that is an incredible podcast. I got to hand it to them. They do so. If you, like me, love B-17s, love the 8th Air Force, that's the subject matter every episode. And, we talked a little bit. He reached out when I was in Dallas last year, of course, with the big airplane crash, of course, with the 17 going down. We talked a little bit then, and he tried to get me on the show, and it just hasn't lined up. But it sounds like we were going to shoot for August, September to be on a debriefing episode, I guess. Awesome. That he just has guests and he wants to just kind of talk my life's history, I guess, with World War II. So looking forward to that because that is a really neat podcast as well. And other than that, no, I'll definitely be sending a lot of pictures from the event in San Antonio in September. And maybe, get to do something with Operation Meatball down in San Antonio one day too. We'll never know.
Hopefully so. And
we'll work that out.
And just a reminder, we want to hear from everybody. So send us an email at mailcall@WTSPWorldWar2.com. And after you shoot up that email, please head over to WTSPWorldWar2.com. Click on the Back the Attack link and sign up for Patreon. It goes a long way to help support what we do here. And as always, please like and subscribe on the YouTube channel and join us every Monday for our live streams. And join us next week. We're going to have a local captain here named Ronnie. He's with an organization called Fish with a Hero, where they take war veterans out, and whether it's on deep sea fishing, freshwater fishing, kayak fishing, whatever their preferably is, they take these gentlemen out and hopefully land a large fish with them and help them acquire a fun day of fishing here in Southwest Florida. So they will be on next week. And for myself, Jeff Copsetta, and Liberty, we want to thank each and everybody for hanging out with us tonight, and we will talk to you all next week.
This has been a Digital 410 production.
Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. The laugh in the background. So good. Oh, what? She'll get it back. Well, and the triple nickel is so specific. Like, not a lot of people know about them anymore. So that's awesome. Yeah.
I wanted.
Okay. Yeah. I'll get that to you right away. And Jeff, I'll bug you about whatever is going on in San Antonio. I've been out of town a lot, so I've been out of the loop, but I'm home for a bit in San Antonio. So I don't know when you're getting in at the end of the month, but I'll see if we have any of our breakfasts or anything happening that y'all can come to. I don't know if you're just staying one night or whatnot, but I'll just throw a lot of stuff at you and you can figure out what works.
Yeah, please do, because I mean, like I said, we're not that far. And if there's a
I
way
know.
to I can just get out for a little bit, or just something we can get to, just a day trip at the same time.